We've talked about the dedicated public servants in the department and the FBI that worked on your cases. One of them you can't talk about, and that's all of the, and these are some of the ones that Trump has raged against most ferociously, and that is the prosecutors and agents involved in the documents case. Just explain why you can't talk about that.
Yeah, there's an order from the judge in Florida, Judge Cannon, that report is under seal, and I don't want to do anything that could be misconstrued as me not following a court order. I'm a lawyer who follows court orders, and so I just don't want to do anything that would be remotely construed as not complying with her order.
Let me just ask, the things that you've said publicly about standing by the facts that you developed and standing by what you've put in your reports, do you stand by Volume 2?
Absolutely.
And the men and women who worked on those cases have been targeted with some of the most vicious retribution and political attacks. Are they political actors?
Absolutely not.
For the ones that are, I mean, have any of them survived the purge at the Bureau and the Department of Justice?
I don't think that's really for me to say. I think I'm focused on the people I can help, and that's what I've been trying to do.
All right, we don't want to jeopardize any of those individuals, and we don't want to put you in a bad spot with Judge Aileen Cannon. You think there's any chance she ends up on the Supreme Court?
I have no views on that whatsoever.
We'll all watch that with bated breath. I want to share some reporting from my friend Glenn Thrush at the New York Times, who's covered some of the folks that you've talked about, and sort of come back to what's on the other side. Kash Patel summarily fired Chris Meyer and another top agent in the Washington, D.C. field office who had been targeted by the right, Walter Giardina. Mr. Patel did so after being told that the terminations were unlawful and that pushing out Mr. Giardina, who was caring for his dying wife, something you talked about, would be inexcusably cruel, according to a lawsuit filed by 3 FBI supervisors, also dismissed by Kash Patel. Quote, "We were always told that we would be taken care of and there would not be any retaliation for our assigned work." Mr. Giardina, 48, told his supervisors the day he was fired the circle of trust had been broken. I want to ask you about this concept of a circle of trust, because as we talked about with the pardons and the slush fund, Trump seems to be erecting, again, what is public-facing, a circle of trust with people who committed crimes for which they were convicted by juries of their peers, not just pardoning them, but giving them money. That circle of trust doesn't do anything for the public safety, for U.S. national security. How do you begin to put back together a circle of trust between public servants who protected the country from threats?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing we can do, and it's challenging, is to get the facts out in ways that people can digest them. I think if you have a question of, is a rioter who assaulted a police officer on January 6th a patriot, or is Harry Dunn a patriot? We win that argument every time if people have the facts. And I think it's hard. And you know, as a prosecutor who worked in a courtroom and didn't really work in the media and didn't, want to give a speech on the courthouse steps, I think we've now learned that you got to be able to get people to understand the facts. We've got a great product in the work that we did as a special counsel, the work the Justice Department does every day. But the people who do it, who are really the reason you can trust it, they don't promote themselves. And so we need to get their stories out there. I think if that happens, the sort of trust in government, which is pretty hard to earn, you can do that. That's my experience as a trial lawyer. It's my experience in life when I interact with people in the world. And part of the reason I frankly wanted to talk to you today is to talk about these people, because they're good people. And if you sat down with them for a coffee or a beer or a meal, you would like them and you would trust them and you would see the things that are being said about them are lies.
And in my experience, which is dated, none of them are particularly political.
I don't know the politics of any of these people. That's not something we talk about in the Justice Department.
What does it do to the ability to imagine something on the other side that isn't a reaction to what's happening now? I mean, everyone from all the reporting that we have access to is only doing the kind of work you're talking about if they've avoided being asked to do something that violates their oath or is unethical or is part of the retribution cases or is predicated on Trump's conspiracies, as we covered at the top of the hour, a massive deployment of intelligence agents to go look at data in Georgia based on a lie. What happens on the other side to people that were involved in that misdirection of resources?
Well, one thing I don't like is this idea that everybody who did things we don't like, they're guilty of crimes too, and we're going to prosecute them. It should be the facts and the law, and you should look at not let's find this person and let's target them and see if we can find a crime. That's what's happening now. I think it's really important that whoever leads the Justice Department after this rejects that sort of thinking. That doesn't mean that people who have committed crimes should get a free pass. And it's going to be difficult. I actually think the investigation of these things isn't hard. What's hard is getting people to understand it's been done in an objective way. Explaining in a way that people can digest that things are done following the facts and law and don't involve politics. That's a challenge. Doing the actual work, there's lots of people out there who've spent their careers like I have who are capable of doing that work. Not just cases in the political realm, but particularly cases also affecting our national security. I spend a lot of time worrying about that when I see some of the people who've been fired.
When you feel optimistic about our ability to come through and about the caliber of the people who are inside the department, what do you think, and do you feel as optimistic about a country that would re-elect someone for whom the facts showed he'd committed multiple felonies?
My view, Nicole, is our country's been a lot of things at a lot of different times. And what generally happens is when something really bad happens, Watergate, for example, we respond and we get better as a result. I'm not saying the Justice Department has been perfect every day, but the people I worked with, I saw people trying to move things in the right direction. And I think it would be foolish to say we're not facing challenges right now. But when you face a challenge like we are today, you have a choice about the attitude you take towards it. Anyone can put anything on you, but you have a choice about the attitude you take. For me, and I think a lot of the people that I've worked with, our view is I want to behave now in a way that my kids will be proud.
Yeah.
I want to act in a way that when I'm retired, I look back on this time and say, I did things right. I think a lot of people relate to that, and I think it's understandable. And I think if we start aligning actions with our beliefs, it's a huge, huge step. I think one of the things I've seen, which is the sort of journey I've been on, is, with me being targeted by the president, you get to find out who's who, right? You get to find out who runs toward the fire, who kind of backs away. It's difficult in the moment, but I think for the future, that's going to be really helpful to know.
Are you afraid to be speaking out?
No, not at all. I am not going to be intimidated. And there's no way in the world, if the thought was to go after me so that I wouldn't speak up about the corruption that's happening or speak up to defend these agents and prosecutors, that is a grave miscalculation. There is no way I'm going to be intimidated.
Would it help the Bureau and the Department of Justice if more of the leaders above the chain of command above you spoke out with the same messages, Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco?
I'm not going to forecast what other people can do or tell other people how they should handle a particular situation. Everyone's got to make their own particular choice. My strong view is, rather than sort of critiquing people who haven't done what we might like them to do, and good, high-integrity people who serve the public, spend their careers in public service, let's focus on when we see somebody doing a good thing, we raise them up. I think that's a more productive way to face the challenge we're facing right now.